Welcome to Machine Learning Lesson 5.2. In this video, we're going to extend what we learned in 5.1 of using a resource called Teachable Machines to create a pose classifier. We're going to take those classifications and use them as part of a game. So let's get to it. So just as a little review, Teachable Machine allows us to do various types of classification. It creates the model, which we can then download and then use it as part of our application. In lesson 5.1, we created a model that was able to identify whether our head was turned to left, to the right, or simply straight, which we're calling stop. We were able to export the model along with some starter code to kind of create our own application so that we're not necessarily on the Teachable Machines resource. And this is the starter JavaScript template, which kind of looks the same. It gives us a little webcam. It also gives us the predictions, not as a bar, but as probabilities, where it identifies that, it looks like we're 1% to the left, or 100% to the left, 100% to the right, and stop. You will notice that the values kind of fluctuate when you're in between. So that's something we have to work on as part of our classification for our video game. Now let's take a look at what our video game is going to look like. Now, this isn't a full tutorial on how to create video games. Again, you're more than welcome to use any platform that you want. But what I'm showing you right now is a library that we've created to kind of simplify some of the interactions and creation of a video game. So regardless what platform you use, it is almost certain that somewhere within that platform, you will have controls. So for instance, using this platform, we detect if the person has pressed the A key, and if they have, we're going to move the blue box to the left. If they press the D key, they move them to the right. So let's just try practice that. And we also got keys for up and down. And we can combine. So the idea is that we want to replace these control identifiers with our pose classifications. So what we want to start doing now is we want to merge, and I'm going to close this out because I actually have it open as a separate window for us to look at. So we're going to start with the index. Again, this is strictly the game portion. So what we want to do is we want to merge our JavaScript, our code from the pose classifier with the game. So the first thing we have to do is we have to load up all these libraries, and we're also going to include the button and the canvas and the label that we have from our template. Again, once you get comfortable with this, you could get rid of those and then initiate the machine learning part a different way. So let's go to our index file, and let's just dump this. I guess we could jump it. Let's dump it here. And the reason I'm dumping it here underneath the canvas is that our start button and our window pop up underneath the game. Let's just do a little cleaning up just so it looks nice. And so let's see what we have here. We have an on-click to start the machine learning model. Now, one thing that I noticed within this library for the game is that the game also uses an init function. Again, that's a very common function name to kind of get things started. Well, you can't have two functions called init. So what I'm going to do is for that machine learning one, I'm going to call it initML. We have a canvas for the webcam, and we have a label to display the probabilities. We've also loaded the TensorFlow library as well as the library from Teachable Machines. Let's go back to our example here, and now we're ready for the actual code. So let's go ahead and grab all this code, and notice I'm not grabbing the script tags. Reason for that is that I'm actually going to create a separate JavaScript file just to hold this code. And let me do this again. Must have remembered from last time, from first time I practiced with this. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to rename that init function that's specific to the machine learning to initML. So that way it coincides with this one. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to bring in that file. So we'll say pose ml.js and let's close out that script. So at this point, we've effectively kind of joined both applications. At least they're going to run on the same web page. They're really not interacting with each other, and that will be the next step. Let's just see to make sure that's working. All right, so the first good sign is that the game is still running. I can still control with the A and the D key. Now let's hit the start to see if we got our webcam and our position classifier to work. Let's do F12, make sure this is no errors. Oh, so this is showing us, it's, hey, where's the model? I'm looking for the model. So that's the last thing we have to do. We have to actually load up the model as well. So let's go to our desktop, and I have it here. And let's go ahead and grab the model and dump it in our game. And now we truly have joined everything. So let's try one more time. Hit start. Okay, there we go. It's looking for the camera. And that means I could get rid of this. And let's see if I can scroll down just a little bit. All right, so we can see down at the bottom, here's our left, here's our right, and here's our stop. It's having a little problem with stop. There we go. Guess I wasn't centered enough. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to join these two applications. At least we know they're both running at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the machine learning application, and I'm going to create another variable here. Let status equal to stop, which is one of our classification names. So our job now is to update this variable called status with the appropriate status. So we're going to go down to this section, the predict, and if you remember, the class name and the probability is what allows us to determine what classification we're in. So I'm simply going to add an if statement in here that says if the probability is over 0.90, we're going to set the status equal to that classification name. And what this is going to do, this is going to allow us to have a little more insurance. So notice how there's fluctuations between the class names as you're transitioning from one position, from one pose to the other. Well, you don't want to have that in the game, or else you're going to see a lot of jerkiness. So we need to ensure that it's 90% accurate that this is the class name before we assign it to our status. So now let's go to our game. So notice our game is going to assume one of those class names. It's going to assume left, right, or stop. And now what we can do inside of our game, it's going to provide like dual control if you want. We can do an OR statement that simply checks for that status to equal to left. Or we could check for that status to equal to right. I'm not going to do anything with the stop, but it does give us a way for us to change the status from left to right. All right, so let's go back to our application. Let's give it a try. So we have to hit refresh, which means we have to start up the machine learning model. And there we go. So you can see right now we're at stop. I'm going to scroll this down a little bit so you can see those probabilities happening at the bottom. I'm going to hit right, stop, left, stop, right. So now we've been able to join the position classifier with the controls of a game. All right, so let's go back to our presentation. Let's review what we've done. So in this particular video, we extended what we saw in lesson 5.1 of creating a position classifier and joined it with the game application. Now, this particular video showed a particular library to develop the game, but honestly, it doesn't really matter the library. What matters is that your particular game at some point has some kind of control mechanism. And we can use those classification names that get produced from the model as it's predicting what position you're in or what pose you're in to determine, okay, I'm going to use that as part of my control system instead of or in conjunction with the existing control system. So hopefully you're excited about adding pose identification to your game, and enjoy.